When someone asks you a question in English, do you immediately feel an intense pressure to start speaking within 1 second, even if your thoughts are still loading?
Oh, absolutely. My brain panics and blurts out a messy, scrambled sentence when I could have just used a bit of brave silence to collect my thoughts.
Right, it's like this overwhelming physical sensation in your chest.
Yeah, the brain essentially goes into full panic mode. Like, instead of taking a second to let the dust settle, your immediate instinct is to just fill the air.
Fill the air with those long, nervous sounds, the endless ums and.
Exactly. When honestly, just a little bit of silence would have given you the time you actually needed to, gather your thoughts.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. This is part of our Skillify English series, and we're taking a story-based English learning approach today to explore this exact feeling.
Yeah, it's such an important topic, especially for learners at that A1 or A2 level who are trying to build their confidence.
Definitely. Today, we're digging into the psychology of conversational pacing and what we call the mental waiting room trap.
Which is such a good name for it.
Right. Our mission today is to figure out why we treat a single second of silence like it's a national emergency.
Right, and how that panic actually forces us to make mistakes.
Exactly. And more importantly, how you can use a slow breath and some really specific soft starter phrases to literally buy your brain 5 extra seconds.
It's a vital mechanic to understand, really, because, this rush is something everyone
Oh
experiences.
yeah, native speakers too.
Absolutely. But we rarely actually examine the machinery behind it. We just, we internalize it. We assume, like, oh, I'm just bad at communicating under pressure.
When in reality, you're just fighting your own nervous system. It's a biological response to a perceived threat.
Exactly.
So let's unpack that machinery. I want to move from that awful hot feeling of panic in the chest to the actual mechanics. What is going on neurologically when, the floor is yours and that silence starts ticking?
Well, it fundamentally comes down to the heavy mental workload of communication and this concept called conversational pacing.
Okay, conversational pacing. Break that down for us.
So, when you speak in your native language, right, in a relaxed setting with friends, you have a natural rhythm,
Sure. It flows.
right? Your brain just intuitively knows when to speak, when to pause, when to listen. It's automatic, it doesn't take much active cognitive load.
But when you switch to English as a second language,
Exactly. Or even if you're just thrown into a really high stakes environment, like a huge job interview, that automatic rhythm just breaks down.
because your brain is suddenly doing like double or triple the work.
Yeah, it's a massive cognitive factory. Think about it. First, your brain has to actively listen and filter out background noise.
Right.
Then it has to translate or decode the meaning of the question. Next, it digs into your memory to find the exact right vocabulary.
Which is hard enough on its own.
Exactly. Then it runs a rapid grammar check. And finally, it has to send signals to your mouth muscles to actually produce the sounds.
So it's an exhausting amount of work to do in a fraction of a second. The sources actually use a really great analogy for this. They say it's like trying to start a car before the engine is finished being built.
Oh, I love that. That's a perfect visual.
Right. Because we feel this immense social pressure to match the speed of a native speaker. So we slam our foot on the gas pedal way too early.
And what happens when you try to drive a car with half an engine?
You stall.
You stall completely, you freeze, you stutter, or your brain just starts throwing out random words to fill the void.
Yeah, we deliberately crash our own car because we are terrified of letting the engine finish building in silence.
That's exactly it.
But, okay, let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Sure.
Doesn't pausing actually make you look, well, kind of incompetent? Like,
Yeah.
if a client asks me a tough question and I just stand there staring at them in silence for 3 seconds, aren't they going to think I'm totally unprepared?
See, that specific fear is exactly what drives the panic. But behavioral psychology shows it's actually a massive distortion of reality.
Really? A distortion how?
We are dealing with something called the 2-second rule illusion.
Okay, let's dig into that. What causes this illusion?
It's rooted in how stress profoundly distorts our perception of time. When you're in a high-stakes situation, your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, perceives a threat.
So you get that adrenaline dump.
Exactly. Cortisol, adrenaline, you enter a mild fight or flight state, and evolutionarily, that speeds up your internal clock so you can react to danger faster.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the bizarre side effect is that time outside of your body seems to slow down to a crawl.
Oh, wow. So you feel like you've been silent for an eternity.
Right. To you, a 1-second pause feels like 10 minutes of agonizing silence. You're thinking, they definitely think I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Okay, I get the biology of time dilation, but I'll push back a little on how that translates socially, because in that moment, it genuinely feels like a massive spotlight is shining on you.
It does feel that way, yes. The silence isn't just quiet, it feels heavy. So in a really competitive environment, doesn't a 2-second pause actually signal weakness?
Well, it's a fair challenge, but we have to distinguish between a panic freeze and a grounded transition space.
Okay, what's the difference?
The panic freeze, the deer in the headlights look, darting eyes, shrinking your body, that definitely signals a lack of confidence.
Right, because you look terrified.
Exactly. But the silence isn't the problem there. The panicked body language is. To the person listening, a grounded, intentional 2-second pause is barely noticeable.
Wait, really? Barely noticeable.
It's just a normal, polite gap. In fact, great speakers and leaders intentionally use this exact gap to their advantage.
So they force the gap to exist. What does that signal to the listener then?
If you ask a great leader a difficult question, they rarely blurt out an instant response. They pause. They maintain eye contact. By claiming that time, they make their words feel heavy, valuable, and respected. It proves you're actively digesting the question.
Instead of just firing off a rehearsed robotic answer. Exactly. It flips the dynamic entirely. You look deliberate and in control.
That's a huge aha moment for me. We are essentially sprinting to escape a danger that doesn't actually exist.
That's it exactly.
We think silence makes us look foolish because our internal clock is at warp speed, but the listener just perceives it as thoughtfulness.
Yes, and that fundamentally changes how you should approach conversations.
It does, but it brings up a deeply practical problem. If my cognitive factory genuinely needs like 3 or 4 seconds to load the right vocabulary, how do I actually manage that space?
Right. Knowing silence is okay is one thing.
Exactly. Suppressing the biological urge to panic while sitting in it is totally different.
Well, that brings us to one of the most actionable tools from the research today. They call it soft starter cushions.
Soft starters, are these just like a polite way of stalling?
Kind of, but it's more about managing cognitive load. A soft starter is a natural conversational filler phrase.
Okay, like what?
Like, instead of sitting in dead silence fighting your panic, you say something prepackaged. Like, to be honest, let me think about that for a second.
Or like, actually, that's something I've been reflecting on recently.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or even just a slow, thoughtful, well, if we look at the broader context.
I call that a zero pressure start.
Yeah.
But neurologically, why does saying a phrase like that help? If my brain is already overwhelmed, isn't forcing myself to speak just adding more work?
That's the fascinating part about human memory. Soft starters don't add to the workload because they use a completely different system in your brain.
Oh, really? How so?
When you construct a complex answer in English, you're taxing your working memory, your short-term RAM.
Right.
But soft starters are highly practiced phrases stored in your procedural memory.
Ah, like muscle memory, like riding a bike.
Precisely. They require almost zero active working memory. Your mouth politely holds the floor with these phrases, while your brain's factory quietly builds the real answer in the background.
I love that. It's like a comfortable verbal loading screen for your thoughts.
Yes. You don't freeze, and you don't make awkward noises because those first few words buy you the exact time you need.
That makes complete sense. The mouth goes on autopilot. There's actually another tool the sources mention that pairs with this for when you're completely blindsided.
Oh, the clarify and reframe tool.
Yeah. Can you explain how that one works?
So say someone asks a question that completely surprises you. Your cognitive factory hasn't even turned the lights on yet.
Right, you're just blank.
Instead of panicking, you simply repeat or rephrase the question back to them. You say, so if I understand correctly, you are asking about...
It's basically the ultimate social cheat code.
It really is.
Because there's a double benefit, right? First, you confirm you actually understood the question, preventing a miscommunication.
Exact.
But second, your brain just gained 5 free seconds of loading time, while the other person nods and agrees with your reframe.
You turn a moment of panic into a moment of active connection. They feel heard, and you get to rest your brain.
But, knowing these tools exist and having the courage to use them are two different things.
Yeah.
Let's look at how we can anchor this into reality.
Yeah, that's crucial.
And since this is a Skillify English deep dive, we always like to do a quick word tour to help you lock in the concepts.
Perfect.
So we have 4 target phrases today. Let's start with our first one. Intimidating. Who is the most intimidating person you interact with?
Well, intimidating just means someone who makes you feel nervous, fearful, or self-conscious, like a really demanding boss or a native speaker who talks really fast.
Right. Why is it so crucial to identify that intimidating person before we practice these tools?
Because intimidation causes that massive adrenaline spike, your perceived threat level skyrockets.
And that's when you want to rush the most.
Exactly. If you anticipate it, you can walk into the room and think, okay, my chest will feel hot, my time perception will warp, I need to have my soft starters ready.
It's like a pre-flight checklist for your nervous system,
Mm.
which leads right into our second word tour phrase, caught off guard.
Yes, being caught off guard. That means being completely unprepared by a sudden surprise or question.
And it's inevitable, right? You can't prepare for every conversation.
No, but when you do feel caught off guard, that sudden anxiety spike should be your trigger to use the clarify and reframe tool.
So the surprise itself becomes the cue. Let me make sure I'm capturing your point correctly.
Exactly.
Which brings up a really interesting paradox in our third phrase, think on your feet.
To think on your feet means making quick decisions and finding the right words under pressure.
But culturally, we idolize this idea that thinking on your feet means having zero processing time, like an instant perfect comeback.
It's such a pervasive myth. True ability to think on your feet relies entirely on your ability to aggressively manage that transition space.
By using those soft starters to get mental bandwidth.
Right, you cannot think on your feet if your working memory is jammed with panic. The sharpest communicators just look quick because they are masters of buying themselves 3 seconds of invisible time.
You literally have to force yourself to slow down in order to be fast.
Exactly.
Which leads us to our final word tour phrase and the ultimate goal here. Brave silence.
Brave silence, making the confident, deliberate choice to just let a quiet moment exist without scrambling to fill it with nervous energy.
And to help build that courage, the sources outline a very specific behavioral exercise, the Brave Pause Challenge.
Yes, this is how you train your nervous system outside of those high-pressure situations.
So how do you do it? I imagine you shouldn't try this for the first time during a major job interview.
Oh, absolutely not. You have to isolate the variable. Practice alone.
Okay.
Take out your phone and record a 30-second voice note, just talking about your day in English. But right in the middle of your recording, you must intentionally stop and force a full, silent breath.
So no soft starters for this specific exercise. No filler words at all.
None. No ums, no ums. Just a clean, empty, deliberate gap of 2 full seconds.
Honestly, even conceptualizing that feels deeply unnatural. Stopping mid-thought feels like a miniature failure.
I know, but it functions like a form of gentle exposure therapy.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it is exactly like that. You're intentionally forcing yourself to experience the thing you're afraid of, the unbroken silence, but in a safe environment.
Right. You have to prove to your own amygdala that the world doesn't end, and nothing catastrophic happens when the sound simply stops.
You turn a frantic sprint into a comfortable walk. It's such a relieving framework when you step back and look at it.
It takes so much pressure off. The goal shifts from, I must be perfectly articulate instantly, to, I am allowed to take the necessary time to process.
Absolutely. So let's recap the journey we've been on today. We started by diagnosing that intense pressure in the chest and breaking down the cognitive factory.
Realizing that we stall our own engines by skipping the loading time.
Right. We dismantled the time distortion illusion, the 2-second rule. Understanding that the screaming silence is just our biology, not reality.
And we gave you the mechanics to manage that space. Soft starters as a verbal loading screen, the clarify and reframe tool, and the brave pause challenge to train your nervous system. And if there's one core takeaway for you today, it's that your voice and your ideas are valuable.
Yes, absolutely.
You do not owe anyone an instantaneous answer. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to take a slow, deliberate breath. Trust in that quiet strength.
Because managing that transition space is where true confidence lives. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building on all this.
Okay.
We focused on face-to-face interactions and speaking English. But what if we took this concept of brave silence and applied it to our digital lives?
Oh, that's interesting.
Think about the adrenaline spike you get when you read an infuriating text message or a controversial social media post.
The instinct to just fire back instantly?
Exactly. Is driven by the exact same panic machinery. Imagine if we all took a mandatory 2-second brave pause, a deliberate empty breath before hitting send. If we could master that tiny transition space on our keyboards, just like in our speech, Could it change not just how we communicate, but the entire tone of how we connect with each other?
It's definitely a transition space worth thinking about.
It really is. Thank you for joining us on this Skillify English Deep Dive. Until next time.